Today's a little bit different. Usually we don't open the chat box. So we've opened the chat box and to get people to interact. And even from that already, we saw that Anil is actually in the house and some new friends as well. So please say your name, hello, where you're from, maybe even what you're looking forward to today's session. Then there's a Q&A box. The Q&A box is for questions. So start thinking about questions that you want to ask. That's what the session's for as well. So we'll do the intro bit about just diving into some prepared questions that Lucy will take us through, and then we'll go into a Q&A. But I would now like to introduce my dear friend Lucy. Lucy and I actually just got to know each other earlier this year. And when I found out that she's a BBC journalist, I was like, we need to get her at the TBN conference to moderate. So I'm so excited that she's here with us today. Lucy has a great heart, and I know she's been looking forward to this session. So without further ado, over to you, Lucy.
Thank you very much, Wen, and thank you so much to you and your team for organising this at such short notice and in very challenging circumstances. And thank you so much to everyone who joins today. I see we've got about 50 people. It's a big ask on a Friday afternoon, but we're going to make it worth your while because we're going to hear some really inspirational stories, and also I hope hear some really good advice, really valuable advice from the people who decide where the money goes. I saw someone in the chat say it's happy hour. I like your sentiment, and I get behind that. Well done. So look, first of all, my two guests. Mason Tan is the CEO of Garden Impact Investments. It's a Singapore-based investment company. And we also have Joseph C, who's the Chief Executive of Agape. Now, we're going to hear more about Garden Investments in just a moment, but firstly, if you haven't heard of Agape, it provides call center services and customer services to companies in a whole range of industries, including media, energy, healthcare, and logistics. But I think what makes this company really special is that it employs and trains men and women who are incarcerated in Changi Prison. It also employs or hires ex-offenders and disabled people and other socially disadvantaged people. You might have heard it's been in the news lately because it's been tapped to participate in the Singapore government's new National Care Hotline, which is essentially providing emotional support for people through the telephone during these really tough COVID-19 times. So first of all, I want to rewind. We're going to touch on all that, but Joseph, I want to rewind and start with you because Agape was founded by a man named Anil David, who is joining us today. And he spent 8 years in jail for money laundering before starting this business. Now that is quite the origin story. Can you tell us a little bit more about how Agape actually came to be?
Sorry, Joseph, you have to unmute.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for having me on the panel today. And welcome everyone to the session. Agape started as, I would say it's a love story. It's a love story of someone who has done time in prison and realizes that wants to redeem himself for the wife, the two daughters who have forgiven him. And this is his way of saying that agape in Greek is unconditional love. And for him, he realizes when he was serving time, the people inside were all street smart, all using that street smartness for the wrong reasons. And he thought that he could reframe all this into using value-based kind of work where people can come to be accepted back into the commercial world. And I think for him, he is a real example of what I call rehabilitation, a real example of resilience. And this is why I'm here in Agape. I was the first client that Agape used. Back then I was in StarHub. I was drawn to what he was doing because he was helping people in which society will most likely shun, will not give that opportunity. And it's very pitiful when I look at it and I say, perhaps because of the lack of opportunity, the lack of proper family environment that brought them to where they are today. And for us, we are in no capacity to judge. And I think the best way to rise is by lifting other people. and that got me started. He started his first contact center seat back in his study room when he was out of prison. That was when in 2012, that's where Agape was born. The first contact center seat done by the founder himself. I have a lot of admiration for him. He teaches me a lot of things. And as I joined him back 2 years ago, we managed to grow the business from what used to be about from moving from one place to another, from 1 seat to 10 seats to 20 seats, and until recently up to 250 seats across 3 locations in the men's prison, women's prison, and where I'm talking to you now in Tai Seng, where we embrace ex-offenders, single mothers, and physically challenged people. And for us, it's really about not just talking, but putting what you say, what you feel, what you want to do into action, where we provide certified skills as well as employment, because you can give money, charity, but that's not going to lift them out of poverty. I think it is about a sustainable way where we are today as a, we call ourselves a business process outsourcer provider. And I think the clients are coming to us and they are drawn to the CSR story and why we are doing all this, and they are very touched.
So Joseph, you mentioned before that ex-offenders are often shunned. Without Agape, what are the options for ex-offenders who are released into the Singapore community? How tough is it for them to find work, and not only work, but also work with a career pathway?
Within prisons outfit, they have a company, a social enterprise. I wouldn't call them social enterprise. They are a government outfit called the Yellow Ribbon, or what used to be known as SCORE. They help match employers with some of the inmates that are looking for work. They do have workshops inside there to train them. But I think the effort alone shouldn't just be from the government. It should be a multi-pronged approach, be it the government, be it the corporations like the people who outsource their business to us, be it the secular, the non-secular organizations coming together. There are some help, but perhaps more can be done, because every year, I would say right now as we are speaking to you, there are about 10,000 inmates serving their time. Every year, about 20 to 30% of them get released, come out, cannot get accepted, family don't accept them. They look at them and say, this is probably your third time, your second, your third time going to prison, why should I accept you? The society that we are in is all quite paper-based. Integrity is important for them. I don't think we have reached that stage, but certainly from where we are today to what used to be in the past, there has been a huge marked improvement. But if you ask me, can more be done? Yes. I think it is a lot of changing of mindset, because in a relationship, the most fundamental thing is about trust. Now, how do you regain back that trust? Through actions, not through words. And this is what the whole contact center business is about. We have inmates where family visit them and they look at them and say that, oh yeah, I had enough of your story. This is, I will change. This is your second, your third time. I just cannot take that anymore. Some don't even visit them. And through our work, we have actually reconciled families, because they know that when they leave the prison premises, there is a job waiting for them. There is a job waiting for them. Outside of my office right now, we do have some ex-offenders working, taking on calls, problem solving. We tell them that the skills that we have taught you all this while, go back to your most important conversation, which is your family, the one that you have been sweeping under the carpet. Because with forgiveness and with healing, then can trust be built. Then can the family can go back to where it should be. There's so much digital transformation. Everyone says digital transformation is good, and I believe it. But I think for us in Agape, if the most important basic block of society, which is the family, is not in shape, I don't think all this matters anymore.
I'm going to bring in Mason now, Mason Tan, the CEO of Garden Impact. This is obviously a really great story, Mason, with a really, really good backstory. Great idea, great backstory. What do you think are the key challenges that people with these sort of ideas face in actually translating those ideas into a sustainable business?
Hi, thank you, Lucy. Hi, everyone. When this is actually Agape is one of my earliest investment in terms of my social impact investing journey. At that time, I just came out from the so-called corporate world. I'm being a finance trained, learn to look at things from a risk management perspective. If you use a traditional risk management perspective, Agape would not qualify for any banking finance, or even is considered extremely high risk, just simply because of Anil's background. He is as he mentioned, is an ex-convict, he's a bankruptcy, he's a discharge. No bank in Singapore will lend him money simply because of the so-called credit risk. So this is something that come as a shock to me. Shock in the sense that, how do I try to operate in a very sustainable manner without compromising financial risk? Because, as a fund, we have to protect our investors' money, but it doesn't mean that there is no opportunity. So I have to unlearn my traditional way of looking at a corporate finance deal to look at from a more sustainable impact investing approach. So in a nutshell, when in the financial sector, you simply use your head. It's about numbers, it's about using your mathematics calculation. But to do well in social impact investing, you need to use both your head and your heart, which means you need your intelligence and your compassion. So when I went into look at the Agape transaction, I had to find ways to improve or to add on what we call the corporate governance regulation, governance rules, to help to make it financially sound and sustainable. So that is option number one. Then number two is that, like what we said, Joseph mentioned earlier, there's a very strong corporate negative stigma against hiring people who have been to prison, despite the Yellow Ribbon Project efforts, despite the so-called government call to embrace such people. There is still a very strong negative stigma. It is not just at purely individual level, but at a corporate level as well, which explain why Agape took a long time to overcome that hurdle. They currently, they grow from startup being the very first corporate clients to currently they have about 4 or 5 major corporate clients, long-term major corporate clients. But it doesn't grow like one every year. For the first, I would say for the first 3 to 4 years, it's only one startup customer. So it took a lot of convincing people, a lot of breakthrough, in their mindset to do that. So that's also a very obstacle, how to overcome the negative stigma. And the third thing is that this is not a traditional investment PE period where we look at 5 years exit. This one requires a long-term sustainable, what we call patient capital. We foresee, for investment like this, will take at least 7 to 10 years before you can start to see profit. So this is some of the key challenges, key perception, perceived obstacles that when we look at projects like this. But over time, I must say that I've been ministered by how Agape is not just churning out so-called reform or rehab agents. We don't see numbers as a data, but we need to learn to humanize these numbers. So probably Joseph or Anil will share later that, you know, so far they have, I would say, impacted about 550 agents or more. To me, it is not just a story of 550 agents. To me, it is 550 stories to be shared, because each one of them have their own story.
Absolutely.
So I will just stop here for now. Yeah.
Absolutely, you're right. So many stories, and I guess the story where it started is, of course, with Anil, and he's joining us on this chat today, which is fantastic. Anil,
Yeah.
if I could bring you in here briefly, like I said, what a remarkable origin story. I guess it's quite abstract to a lot of us to know what it's like to be in jail and what it's like to be released from jail and try to rebuild a life again. But can you tell me a little bit about what life was like for you when you were released from jail, and what drove you to found this company?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
All right. You know, Mason, you can see his hair is all white. Before he met me, it's all black. And after he has met me, right, it's all white now, after the many years of that. So you do your maths on that one. Okay, one thing about the prisons, right? This is anywhere in any prison in the world, you ask this question, why do people come back? I'll tell you in a very simple answer why people come back. In Singapore's prison, or in most of the prison, we spend 23 hours locked up. And in these 23 hours when we are locked up, we will be in a cell of about 4 to 5 people, and we will talk about the same things. For example, if I've done a theft for $100 and the other person has done for $50,000 and the other person has done for $1 million, the $10 learns and upgrades, he graduates himself to be a bigger criminal. And the one who takes drugs, like probably like simple designer drugs, will graduate to take the smack and cocaine. So prison is a breeding ground. This is what we do. We talk about our crimes. We talk about the things. Our mind is being transformed by garbage in, garbage out. So when I sat down there, I was just becoming another victim, getting sucked because it was a breeding ground. But something changed, and I began to realize this is how the idea of a call center fall into my mind. Say, if I could take 8 hours of their life out of their room and give them right stuff, good things to read and restructure their thought process, this will change their behavior and outcome. So with this, right, this was the idea that I stuck that, hey, if we just leave them doing nothing, their mind will become worse and they will graduate to be much more worse than the first time they went in. So prison is a breeding ground. But when you work with Agape in our call center, 8 hours of your life every day for the next 3, 4, 5 years, where we teach you professional skills, effective communication, problem solving, they become very therapeutic. They become life skills, and change in behavior happens because they're practicing what they're being taught for the next couple of years. Yep.
So Anil, obviously there were significant challenges from getting your idea off the ground and bringing in sort of the big amounts of money to really make it a sustainable business. How did you overcome those challenges, and what was your pitch to investors?
One day at a time. I didn't have the answers, solutions. When I had my office, I would have a haversack bag on my shoulder, and I would go to the office with 4 cup noodles packed inside my bag. And I didn't have money to eat. I'll go to McDonald's, get warm water, put in a cup noodles, and that was my lunch. You see, I wanted to walk this journey, and I knew there's going to be a price to pay. And I decided to walk the journey because I believe as long as I keep moving and become consistent in my attitude, some or other somebody will come and invest in my attitude. I think people like Mason and Joseph and all the other people that have come and invested in Agape, it's not because that we are extraordinary. They've invested because they find my attitude good. And attitude is bankable, even to today, for anyone, regardless of race, color, or religion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Agape is an example of a really successful project, isn't it? But I guess not every good idea does translate. what do you say, Mason, to investors who might want to invest in something that does social good and has an impact, but are quite rightly concerned about returns? You know, what do you say to investors who are not quite convinced that social impact and financial returns can go hand in hand?
Thank you. That is a question that I've been faced since day one, 8 years ago. Today, I'm still facing the same question. First of all, we must see social impact investing as not a pure financial instrument, not a pure financial assets. I have been informing my investors and potential investors. If you are looking to maximize returns based on your money you invest in us, you are not coming to the right place. Current impact is not the place for you to make maximize financial returns. For garden impact, we are looking at projects that provide both positive financial returns as well as positive social impact returns. For us, if a project that does not provide positive financial returns, it is considered as a charity. So we are very, very mindful that there are many good social enterprises out there, but if they cannot generate profitability, then for us, we cannot invest. But it just needs more time. So as I mentioned earlier, instead of looking at a window between 5 to 7 years, we need to look at a window between 7 to 10 years investment period. So this is what we call patient capital. Another thing is that what we can looking at offer to our investors is beside positive financial return, positive social impact returns, but also a legacy. You know, a legacy is a reflection of our own personal values. You know, we want to offer investors an opportunity to be part of this journey, to be part of a reflection of your values. Do you believe in humanitarian? Like what people say, if you believe in profit maximizing, that's fine, but we are not your place. But if you believe in helping to lift people out of poverty, helping people to give, you know, a meaningful, transformed life, then this is the place that we're looking at. And of course, another important thing is that I personally do not believe you can be both profit maximizing and impact maximizing at the same time. So I think this is some of the things that we need to highlight upfront before we, you know, make any investment.
And just briefly, Mason, we've just had a question through from Nathan Chan. Thank you very much for your question, and please keep them coming in. You sort of did touch on this, but he's asking investors, do you think about an exit strategy for your investment? You know, there's the social impact, but how do you determine what your financial goals and returns should be?
Yes. So for us, our portfolio investment out of 7 at the moment, we have 1 exit at the moment. And that's why it is important that we can demonstrate that only by having sustainable social enterprises, then we are able to exit. Because when you cannot achieve positive financial sustainability, it is definitely difficult to exit. Again, our exit strategy, there are a few. One is either through, one option is through a management buyout. After a period of years, we'd like to sell our shares back to the founders of the company. Number 2 is that either we do a trade sale, you know, we sell the shares to a friendly competitors. And of course, the last option is could be IPO or M&A, but honestly, that option is the most remote likely, because we need to be realistic and practical about exit strategy.
So Mason, Anil says that attitude is bankable. Apart from attitude, what's your top tip for people who have ideas and want to approach investors? What are the key things that they need to be bringing to the table?
For me, my very first question to every social entrepreneur is why? Why are you doing this? So from the conversation, I'll be able to know whether the social entrepreneur is for a self-profit, or really care for the poor and the marginalized people. And again, I am not judging those who are in doing this for profit because they have their own reason, that's fine. But we need to find social entrepreneurs that are aligned with our values of showing compassion, of giving people like Anil and even other social entrepreneurs an opportunity to rise up. We believe in investing in the poor, not just giving charity to the poor.
Now, Anil said that he turned your hair grey, Mason. But look, what I'm keen to know is, is there anything that you've learnt from Anil's approach to business and his attitude, both to Joseph and Mason? Joseph, I'll start with you. What has Anil taught you in business?
Anil taught me, and I've said this to him before, he's able to see light in darkness, something I'm still learning at times, even as a Christian. What often seem as an impossible task, somehow he will prove me wrong. And that's the nature, because I think he's a commando in during the time when he served NS, and I can imagine all this came in very useful as he gone through the time in prison. Resilience is one, and I think the other thing is also respect for the individual. Because if we talk about the lives of the 550 people, there are so many heartbreaking stories that you hear. You can only conclude that whatever situation that you are in, or anyone is in, there's one that's probably in a worse shape. And how people get out of that situation is always very inspiring to your present situation. And I draw a lot of strength from that. And looking at him from where he used to be and now, I'm so proud of him. Yeah.
Mason, is there anything that you'd like to add? What have you learned from Anil's approach to business and to life, really?
Well, I really admire and respect Anil for his resilience, and more importantly, is his teachable heart. I think this is something that we find that is important because we as an investor, we are your partners, and we want to bring the best outcome for every social entrepreneur. So I think, honestly, Agape has been going through up and downs. Anil knows it very well. But, when we even have to make tough decisions, we respect each other. We try to practice tough love on each other. It is not easy, but we know one day we will overcome it. And Anil also taught me about being patient. I mean, honestly, if you look at it from a traditional research analyst, you look at this project, or as an investor, you would have cut loss 3 years ago. Cut loss means, okay, I'm going to give up this project and move away, because this is what a typical fund manager is being trained to do. You shouldn't be attaching emotions to your investment. So, that is something sometimes that we have to learn to make sure we are not letting our emotions rule our investment decision. So it is quite a tough balancing act. But Anil has stretched my limits. It's okay. He's not the only one who make my hair gray. There are other investments as well.
It's a group effort.
Group effort.
So we
That's
heard
correct.
Joseph a little bit before about how there's a certain stigma and stereotyping around people who have been in prison. How does that stereotype actually match up with the people that you're actually employing and training through Agape?
Okay, I think, can you hear me? Yeah. I think for the people that we hire, I think a lot of them, I would say that they are probably suffering from some form of low self-confidence, low self-esteem. And what we have taught them is to have a listening ear as we listen to them, treat them as individuals. And we often, I think Anil, myself, we often see the ability in them rather than all the disabilities that they have or have demonstrated. Because I think we all believe that inherently every individual there is good by nature, but it's probably because of the circumstances that brought them to where they are. And we try to draw that out from them. We try to teach them values like, in Agape, we have this 6 core values shaped to the acronym of ASPIRE, from accountability to selflessness, to things like professionalism, integrity, respect, and excellence. Simple things like respect, we bring it down to their level and we say that respect is really, integrity, for example, is something about doing what is right, not doing what is easy. Because for them to earn $50,000 a day, they know where to go. But doing the right thing over the phone, when you tell the customer that you're going to call them tomorrow at 4 p.m., you will call the customer at 4 p.m. because this is about professionalism. Over the phone, if you realize that you said something, you gave some wrong information, you put down the phone, you will call the customer back and say that I gave you the wrong information. So these little things about values being practiced in the job becomes the new values that we are helping them to shape up. Each of them comes with a lot of baggages, emotional baggages. I learned somewhere that it says in order to fill up the cup, you need to empty it out first. So you need to empty out these baggages, and we listen to them and we try to counsel them. Only then can you start filling in all those things. We often tell them that an air balloon can only rise when you remove all the sandbags. And the sandbags are like all the baggages that they have, and they don't serve any purpose. They will only eat you up. And it's good to release them. Things like learning how to forgive yourself, learning how to seek forgiveness. Only when you talk about forgiveness can healing take place. And when healing takes place, you are emptying the cup. And this is something that we do day in, day out when we visit the prison clusters, when we speak to the inmates, even the ex-offenders. Ex-offenders, when they come into our city office, we help them to acclimatize back to become civilians because they have been in that environment. And because of all that digital changes that's happening, I think it's really a lot to grapple with. And we journey with them, we handhold them. Some of them, in fact, like one of the ex-offender that we are working with, I can't mention the name here. We were so happy yesterday because he just received a letter from the university that he's going to be accepted. And right now we are saying that, hey, we got to get our resources to help him either through scholarship. He came to me asking me, I need help. Can you find me a cheap laptop that is $200, $300? I think Anil and myself, we made a decision we're going to help him because the topics he's going to study is related very closely. I think it's around the topic of social environment. And I have this very strong sense that he's coming back to help us. And we are so pleased because other examples will also include offenders who have been out of prison, acclimatizing, learning the trades. One of them has actually gone back into the prison to become the manager over there, because only he has the authority to say, I know how you feel. I've been there, done that. If I can do it, so can you. Just like how Anil can do it. There are some conversations I cannot say, I know how you feel because I've never been inside there. Anil can take it. But for me, it is more a partnership in the corporate space to say that because I have been in the contact center space for over 20 to 25 years, I've been there, done that. Partnering with Anil means that we will get the job done, and we have gotten the job done. The social impact story can be very nice, but at the end of the day, clients will look at you and say, okay, I believe your story, but can you deliver? And we have delivered. And I thank God because a lot of the clients that are coming on board are referrals from existing clients. And it's so nice. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Yeah.
We're going to continue talking about Agape in just a moment, but firstly, speaking of projects that deliver, Mason, I know you would love to tell us about a project that's very close to your heart involving bees. You were telling me that more than 60% of farmers borrow from loan sharks in Indonesia with very high interest. That's a remarkable figure, and one that I was not personally aware of. So can you tell me a little bit more about this particular project and how it's helping farmers?
Sure. Can I request the slides to be up? Thank you, David. Yeah, so this barley honey is a beehive farming. Next page, please. Yep, so this project is started in actually in Bali, but now has expanded to somewhere near East Java. It's founded by a former business executive who is tired of a corporate life. She decided to go into the village and help, try to see how she can help the farmers living in the rural area in East Java and of course in Bali. She was shocked that when she went to visit the farmers in the village, most of them have borrowed from loan sharks, simply because due to the climate change, many of their harvesting crops are being delayed or being affected. But as you know, most farmers have their families that they need to feed their children every day and need to pay the school fees to send the kids to school. So, but because of the delay in harvesting or the reduced yield, the farmers cannot borrow from bank because they are unbankable. And they had no choice but to borrow from loan sharks. And for a typical $500 loan borrowed from the loan sharks, they have to pay $50 interest every month, which compounded to be about 120% interest rate every year. And so this that you realize that the loan sharks are making these farmers into their ATM machines. They become a modern day slavery. Next slide, please. And so Ibu Ade, the founders, next slide. So Ibu Ade have decided to help to free these farmers from the bondages of the loan sharks. She decided to use her own money to pay off the debt of 60 farmers and help them to train them to learn about how beehives farming. So, and she also discovered that most of the beehive farmers sell their products 2 weeks after harvesting, but actually it is still not in good quality. A normal proper process would take 6 weeks. The farmer had to sell within 2 weeks after harvesting because they need cash, they need money. But because of the 2 weeks shortened period, the quality is very bad, and therefore they are not able to sell at a good price. But if now she managed to convince them to wait up until 6 weeks. So she managed to export a small quantity to Belgium last year. So this shows that there are opportunities to free the farmers away from the loan shark. Next slide, please. So we want to tell the market that these products are not necessarily cheap or bad. These can be premium products. So we are trying to educate the consumers that when you buy directly from these farmers, that you're actually helping them. Next slide, please. So our intention as an investor that we want to help them to scale up. Currently, they have about 250 families benefited from this project, and we hope to scale them up to 1,000 families. Next slide. And so our intention is actually not just helping the farmers to sell a good product, but also try to address the long-term issue of this dwindling bee population. As you know, because of the global climate change, many bees died. Next slide, please. And so this is a team of great people that we're really putting up their lives, helping out to grow the farmers. The last slide, next slide. So I really want to encourage you to go and visit this website and take a look at this and reach out to Ibu Ade They have fantastic, life-touching stories. She's even brave enough to face the loan sharks, who have been harassing the former borrowers because, when you pay off the debt, the loan shark realized that they have one less ATM machine to print out the money. So I think this is part of the story where we believe that we can identify more and more such projects where we can not just giving them financial returns, but also social impact returns, livelihood income.
Thank you for sharing that, Mason. And if anyone has any other questions about barley honey, please do feel free to put them into the chat, and we'll absolutely ask Mason those towards the end. Look, I want to turn to current events and events that no one has really been untouched by. The world's been turned upside down in 2020. Borders are closed, economies are weakened, some in recession for the first time in a long time, and major industries are shut down too. Mason, let's start with you. I'm interested to hear how, what are the challenges to social impact projects? How concerning are these tough economic times when it comes to putting money into these really worthwhile causes?
Tough question. Well, as you said earlier, COVID-19 pandemic hits everyone. No one is immune from this. I just felt that this is the time where more people need to rise up. As you know, traditional banking institutions are busy saving the big corporations, let alone the SMEs. So as you can see, social enterprises are probably at the bottom of the pyramid. I would actually feel that if you really want to be a social impact investor, that I think this is the time to rise up. They need money to tie it up. So this is why under the TBNAsia platform, we come out with the concept of resilience program, where we also have a resilient fund. The purpose of the program is to provide emergency bridging loan to social enterprises, because if we do not save these social enterprises, they will not be able to continue to provide livelihood income to the poor and marginalized. I'm sure you have read news about how COVID-19 has set back or rather increased the number of poverty trapped especially in Southeast Asia. In Indonesia, they are saying that it's set back as far back as like 10, 20, 30 years back. So this is very alarming, because to me, if we do not help the poor, there will be an increasing potential for social tension because of income inequality, because of this discrimination. So I think this COVID-19, definitely it is not just a financial crisis, it is a healthcare pandemic. I just want to highlight saying that this COVID-19 crisis did not break anything. It's just merely a reflection how broken our system is. So I really want to encourage everyone to join in efforts. I think there's a famous saying that if you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. So you cannot say, I'm not part of the problem, I'm not part of the solution. You got to be one of them. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Joseph, I guess Agape is an example of one of these social impact ideas that now during tough times of COVID is actually giving back and is actually showing very much its worth. Can you tell me a little bit more about the impact that COVID-19 has had on Agape and what Agape is doing now to support people who have been affected personally? Might just need to turn on your mic there, Joseph.
Oh, goodness, I forgot again. Okay. I think with COVID-19, what it meant for Agape is it made us realize that we need, because for us, we are Agape connecting people, that's the name. The verb here is connecting. We realized that we need to move from connecting to collaboration. And we have done a lot of collaboration even for this itself. One of which was I think we are grateful that the confidence was there for the government to approach us to set up the National Care Hotline. This is one of the things that we can then provide emotional support to all those who are suffering. And not more the people who are answering the calls. I think sometimes it's good to give. That's the best way to receive. And they learn through this process. We also had opportunities where people came to us because in Agape, while we are a BPO, we are into contact center. So it means that we provide call center services, email handling, live chat. COVID-19 meant that a lot of companies who have outsourced their contact center businesses to Philippines, India, and they have lockdowns over there, had a lot of issues. A lot of these businesses are rethinking their continuity plans. They realize they need some local diversification as part of the overall environment. In Singapore, if you ask any Singaporean, they will tell you that perhaps a Singaporean can understand a Singaporean better. And as I do this work, we realize that this is also empowering someone who's trying to lift themselves up. We also had leads generation capabilities that other social enterprises were tapping on us, Speak and Span, where they dealt with sanitization services. We generated a lot of leads, and I think they are reaching out to more customers. We also took this time while we are a social enterprise, I think especially Anil, we have provided about 52,000 hot meals to the migrant workers. As part of partnering other foundations, we realized that we can really lift other people while we know there isn't any commercials to it, but we realized we need to do that. We also had a nursing home that reached out to us to say, hey, we needed face masks. This nursing home was actually catering to a destitute old folks, about 240 of them. So through our partners, through the foundation, we managed to give each of the 240 old folks there a care pack of what they really need in terms of the groceries and everything else. So I think it's really a blessing for us. And as we listen to the National Care Hotline, we can hear a lot of heart bleeding, and I can't share too much of that. But generally, I think everyone is in a challenging time. For Agape, it was really an opportunity to demonstrate that we could execute. We started the hotline planning everything in 10 days. We had to work around and organize the schedules for 500 volunteers who serve as psychologists. And this is going on 24/7 since 10th of April till now. We leverage on technology. Everyone was really working very, very hard, but we knew how important this was. And I think I can only say what a privilege it has been. And because of this National Care Hotline, it has also opened up a lot of doors for Agape to do a lot of other things, because it's not easy for the government to outsource something to you. And for them to outsource this to us as a partner, I think it means a lot for Agape. And we are also reaching out to other businesses to say that if you have continuity plans, take a look at them. There we have locals, and there are quite a lot who are probably displaced because of retrenchment that's going to happen, and we can reskill them, reframe them into another career or customer service skills. I think for us, it's also that journey of trying to move towards training. We recently, last year, we were one of the 9 award winners from DBS Foundation, where we wanted to move into training. And this will allow our people to have certified skills. And this is something that I'm going to share a bit more later. Yeah.
Great. And I understand you have a video to share with us now, Joseph, telling us more about that.
Yep.
I think we're just queuing that up. Here we are. Yeah.
You have reached the National Care Helpline. If you or someone you know is emotionally affected by COVID-19, we are here to help.
"10 days to set up a hotline from ground zero wasn't easy. The team knows the importance of this hotline, and everyone worked round the clock to make it happen.
And at this time, we are so proud of you to have this opportunity to serve your nation through the hotline. Know that every call, every contact you make will be a blessing for others.
And thank you so much for all the hard work that you have been putting into answering calls to the volunteers and all the back-end staff. You're making a lot of difference in the lives of a lot of people in Singapore and a lot of families.
Hi Anil and everyone at Agape. Just wanted to say a big hello to all of you on a Monday. Thank you so much for the work that you do. I just wanted to encourage you and just say that you all are doing really important work in bringing hope and peace and even just a listening ear to those who really need it.
Joseph, thank you very much for sharing that video. I imagine that kind of emotional support is something that will be needed sort of well into the future, isn't it? It's not just when the circuit breaker starts to lift phase 1, 2 and 3. Those kind of things are going to take a long time to recover from. You did mention it briefly before, but let's end on a very high note. What are your plans for Agape going forward? What is the expansion plan? I know you mentioned something to me the other day about bringing young people in. We'd love to hear about it.
That's right. We have today impacted incarcerated people, ex-offenders and single moms and physically challenged. We want to grow that to include youth at risk because I think they are the important core of society. The other thing that we are also actively doing, and it was really a pleasure that we are humbled that we were one of the 9 recipients from the DBS Foundation Grant Award. That award will allow us to set up training facilities so that we can provide up-to-date certified skills and employment to a larger group of people. For us, we are at about 550 people that we have impacted, and we want to bring this to 1,000 by 2022. If I can bring it earlier, the better. And I think because we are in the space of contact center communication specialists, we are also innovation in technology, and we are also looking at how we can leverage on some of the website development know-hows that we have within Agape itself. And because when you develop a website for somebody, the other complementary skills will come along, like live chat, email handling, which is an inherent skill within the Agape community. And I think for us, when I look at every single individual, it means that there is a family that is being supported at the back. So if I look at, say, 1,000 people, and if let's say a family has 4 people, I think we are impacting 4,000. Anil and myself, well, very humbly, we just want to go beyond that 1,000 because we can see what this empowerment of skills and employment means to each of them. And we have seen many families turning around because they can now measure that the hope that they have in their heart and translating into a changed person. And this is something that keeps us awake every morning, excited to say, who else can I impact tomorrow? So these are all the little things that we do. This is a marketplace where the marketplace value sometimes doesn't match up with the Christian values that we have. And I think Agape is a wonderful place for me to practice those Christian values in the marketplace, and we can be sustainable, and yet we can be the face of the one above for everyone else in this group.
And what about you, Mason? You on the lookout for the next Agape? You open for pitches?
Yes, we're always looking for impactful stories to invest, and we just want to highlight to people that there are meaningful investment that we can make, not just financial returns, but social impact returns. So in fact, we have seen quite many pipelines, pipelines around this region, in Southeast Asia. So yeah, please continue to show us the deals, show us the pipelines. We're very, very keen to discuss with all the social entrepreneurs.
Great, and I know that there are some stories from Agape that have very much touched you. Can you tell us about some of those?
Sure. Yeah, I still maybe Joseph, let me share one, and then you can share one. I just want to share that. For me, is I recall Anil shared with me about a male agent. I call him an agent. I don't call him a convict, who started to work in the contact center at the men's cluster in Changi prison. So I recall that each prisoner actually is allowed to write 2 letters to the public, to outside, to the family every month. And so this particular gentleman was being asked by Anil, why you do not write a letter home? He said, since I came to jail 3 years ago, my family never bothered to visit me. My son doesn't want to talk to me. But then Anil keep encouraging him. No, it's okay. Just write something that what you do. Just. So he reluctantly wrote a letter, a half-page letter, say, "Dear son, I woke up at 7 o'clock. I brushed my teeth. At 8 o'clock, I go to the call center. I turn on the computer. And this is what I do. I call on behalf of the telco company. I do this." It came out only half a page, but so he sent the letter home to the son, and 3 days later, a reply came back from his son, and the letter say, "Dear Papa, I'm very proud of you. I've forgiven you." So I mean, to me, every story, every prisoner deserves a chance for restoring their broken lives. And it's about trust. It's about how do you give them a chance, but not just speaking, but through action. So in the prison, there's also a program whereby we encourage the prisoners to remit a part of the salary back to the family every month. And there is a matching donor program, 1-for-1, that is helping them. I think the fact that when the prisoners start to send money home, you will help to restore the relationship, restore the trust, and more importantly, the confidence from the family members in the men's prison. Over to you, Joseph.
Maybe I share a story from coming out from the women's prison. No names mentioned, but we know of people who are, a lady who's probably 27, 28 years old, in prison, I think probably for the second time. 7 children, all fathered differently. In the first 7 years of her life, when she was 20 to 27, I think she probably got herself into some mess, working with those KTV night lives. And right now, what she's doing right now is she's learning all those customer service skills. She makes a very good contact center agent, and her ability to pick up things is, my goodness, very fast. And what she's going to do when she leaves this place next year, she's probably going to take up her diploma again, and she is going to be back in our city office, and we're going to give her a job, and she can learn, and she can start rebuilding her life. You see, often we do not ask them why you come into prisons. I think it is important for them to know that they should start building their resume when they're in prison. And that's what we often tell them. Start building a resume. In 2 to 3 years' time, what would that piece of paper look like? How can I help you? These are the things I can offer to you. You can go out to a job that allows you to earn something that is sufficient, that you can move away from that fact that you used to be able to, you have to have 2 to 3 jobs, one night job just to make enough for the family. But because of the certified skills, because of the employment in the contact center industry, they can start at a comfortable pay, not having to know that I need to work at night to do something else to supplement the income. And I think being able to put food on the table, being able to be able to learn up something, and this is the best form of gaining back that trust from the family and building back the family, the whole nucleus again. I think this is what we do. So that is actually the most prized thing for us. It's not because we are profitable. The most prized things for us is because we manage to reconcile the families.
I've just got a question here from Lester Tan. Thank you for sending that through, Lester. It's quite a good one. He asked, to what extent do government regulations and intervention play a role in kind of impact investment versus for-profit funds? Mason, do you have any thoughts on that first?
I think at the moment, I must say for Singapore MAS side, they have nothing come out yet, but I believe they are looking into it. I've heard some studies are being conducted around because they consider this social impact investing as high risk. High risk in the sense that there's no guarantee return, there's no proven track record, there's not enough data to able to assess whether this is a proper investment. We're still in the learning journey, but I would encourage people that to shift to allocate a small portion of their traditional pot of money to set aside like maybe 5% of their portfolio company fund into so-called social impact investing, because I don't believe the 5% investment is going to affect your 95% fund performance. So I would like to take this, encourage everyone to not just to take it as a CSR route, but really thinking of more meaningful and impactful journey.
Joseph, any thoughts on that to add? So you're just on mute there still.
Okay, third time, I should get a gift. Okay, I think honestly for us, I'm just looking ahead for people to reach out for us to work, because no point if we keep connecting if it doesn't end up in any form of collaboration. And we all know that everyone carries a certain gift, and when we come together, a lot of things can happen. And as I mentioned earlier, there are about 10,000 inmates serving time in prison. There are a lot of people who are probably jobless right now because of what has happened in COVID-19. Single mothers who need to bring food home, feed the babies, who want to be independent. And this is what we always teach them to be. You don't have to rely on the men. I mean, it sounds so wrong for me to tell them that, to say, you know what, don't stay away from that abusive husband or the partner. To physically challenge people, not everyone are willing to employ them, but we are taking them on. So to all the businesses who are hearing out now, I will say to you, consider Agape. We will be able to deliver as we move from one client to the other. And I think this is a fantastic CSR piece for any company. And we are happy to partner anyone on this journey.
Joseph and Mason, thank you so much for joining us. Joseph from Agape and Mason from Garden Impact. We really appreciate you sharing your stories and talking to us and giving all this fantastic advice. Thank you so much. And I'll hand back to Wen.
Thank you. Thanks, Lucy, for that. We're still going to have a bit of time for Q&A, so just hang around because I'll just take those questions. But we have actually posted the email addresses in the Zoom in the chat on the side. If you want to get in contact, I know that Lucy, as a BBC journalist, is always out there looking for good stories. So please get in contact with her as well. And so just a couple of things. We're just going to flash up a poll now just to get some feedback on this last session. Thank you so much for joining us. And also just to talk about tomorrow. So it's not the end today because tomorrow there's still a couple of things happening. So if I can just get the slides up as well, please, from David. It will just pop up and then I'll just walk a couple. And also, Anil, I have a question for you. So if you can just stay on the line, I would love to get you back on just for a very quick question. So the next steps. The next session is actually Social Enterprise Saturday. So it's 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you can see the logos of the companies that will be presenting. And so if you want to interact, get in touch, please come and join us tomorrow. And please share the links because it's open to the public. So you don't have to purchase a ticket for this one. So that would be really great if you can spread the word and get the rooms filled up. It's going to be a great day. Please also continue to post on social media. The conference is, well, one day away from being over, but just share the stories. And we just love to just even hear feedback. I know in the feedback polls, we asked for if you can just give us a one-liner, a testimonial, that would be fantastic as well. There's also a session tomorrow at 3 to 3:30. So if you're interested in getting in touch with TBN, the board members will be all there and you can ask questions, connect. And like Joseph just said, connecting is great, but let's see some action. Like, let's work together and see something resulting. I think the best part of our conferences is the connections you make, but actually the activity that follows. So please get in touch. That would be fantastic. So I've got a couple of questions myself. So in the dry run, Joseph, because the session was called Second Chances, you actually spoke about equal chances or equal opportunities. And I know we didn't touch on that today, but do you mind just talking a little bit about that?
I think often when they look at yellow ribbon, everyone said, okay, let's give them a second chance and all that. But I think the second chance may not come out equal. And I think in our mission statement, we wanted to provide equal reskilling and employment opportunities. And I feel that every individual should have that equal opportunities regardless of their background. Something is a tall order, but this is something that we aspire to move towards because I just want everyone to restart on that equal footing. And I think everyone has inherent beauty and inherent skill and gift. And I think we need to be able to draw that out only if you give them that equal opportunity.
Thank you for that. And now I was gonna ask, actually, either yourself or Anil, if you, I think I might actually allow Anil to talk as well. I've unmuted you, I've promoted you up to the panelist, Anil, thank you. I'm sure that in a lot of cities and other countries where there is a big population, you know, who are going into prison and they're thinking of programs, I'm just thinking even within the region and overseas, have you guys had people, you know, other prisons and other governments approach you for help? And is there going to be like future collaborations to see Agape opening up in different cities?
Anil?
I lost the question earlier because something happened to the laptop for a while. Could you just repeat one more time, Wayne?
Yeah, no worries. Has there been inquiries from like other governments and prisons around the region or overseas that have been interested in the same model? Because I would assume that, I mean, it's such a great concept and it works. You guys have proven that it works.
Yeah.
So is there any plans in the future for that?
Okay, in the last couple of years, a few interesting things have happened. Someone from UK, one of the events that actually Mason had with his team before, met this group of people. They wanted us to start this thing back in UK. But at that point of time, under the guidance of Dato Kim and Mason, say we're not ready yet. I was also invited to Malaysia. They flew me first class, gave me a Shangri-La hotel to stay. I mean, that was for free. And then met a lot of people there. They say, shall we do this? Again, Mason and Dato say, we're not ready yet. True. You know, that's why, you know, I got to listen to them because they are more probably matured in this scene. And lately, last year, I already have got people from New Zealand. In fact, I was just talking to the guy yesterday. They are looking at about how to do this in New Zealand. So I did a little bit of homework. So I had a conference call yesterday. I was telling to the guys, look, 70% of your prison population is actually occupied by Maoris. They're all gang leaders and all this thing. In order to do this to work, what needs to be done? The population and this group of people needs to be totally cut off, because the mind is going to be a lot, you know, just as you want to climb up, there are 10 people who pull you down. So they were sharing, so they are exploring on this, but I, again, not so sure that we are ready for that. But in particular, because when you want to set something up, you need investments, you need a customer, and if you have customers and investments, then there can be a good marriage. If I have their interests, if I have the investment, if I've got no customer, it still doesn't happen. So if I have a customer and the support, then it makes sense. You know, it's, you know, you don't go in with hoping that you get your part 1, part 2 already. You've got to have a complete picture, then you go in, because lots of people's hope and trusting in Agape to do it is important. Our model works. It really works. Just last year, when me and Joseph were in the women's prison, I tell you this story. This Malay girl, very soft-spoken, she came to me and said this, Mr. Anil, can you employ me when I release? She was practically like in a begging mode, no? Can you give me a chance? I promised to work hard. That was last year. She's been working with us in our office. And just 2 months ago, Joseph, myself, we all attended her marriage. So you see, a life being transformed, not just from the prison, back to a relationship, to their family. We witnessed 7 marriages. Families have reconciled. So the work is not just about all for profits, but that's very important, because the road we decided to take is at for profit, so that every year I don't need to go and beg for money just to invest into their vision. So if we have profits, we can scale up.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's the whole premise of social enterprise. It's great. I'm going to give this chance to Joseph actually to just do your pitch. Like, if we are a whole bunch of potential customers in here, what do you do? What can you do well so that this is your chance?
I think if I've only 2 seconds, I'll say, try us, you won't regret. But let me see how many minutes I have. Okay, I think the whole picture is about we need everybody in this whole partnership, and we cannot do this by ourselves, not the government. And if you want to do something meaningful, this is the place. We sometimes forget that we are mortals. We sometimes think that we're going to live here forever, and we sometimes think that we shouldn't be building the riches here. We should be leaving a legacy behind. And this is one way, because you can only rise. For us, I think one good way to rise is by lifting other people. You're not able to bring everything to the next place. You cannot pay now over to the next place. It's not going to happen. So we are mortals, and we have an expiry date. So for myself and even Anil, we know we have to do this. And it is no longer about us. It is about other-centered. And I think this sits in very well with the beliefs that we have.
Joseph, something that struck me about Agape and also about Bali Honey that Mason was telling us about is that it starts with a really good story. And I think journalists and investors are attracted to very much the same things, which is a great story, you know, because you're selling honey or you're selling customer service platforms, but you are selling that story, aren't you? And I just think those 2 projects have that in common. So I guess, to what extent, both Mason and Joseph, would you say that, you know, the ability to have your financial figures, but also to tell that story in a really engaging way, how important is that when you're pitching to investors?
The story, Mason, sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead. You go ahead first.
Okay. I guess everybody likes to hear a story. Everybody likes to know that this story is real and this story is sustainable. And I think more importantly, after all that song and dance is over, can you really execute? And if you cannot execute, in most cases, you only have one chance. For us, every time when we go into a business development meeting, we know we only have one chance. And sometimes for myself and Anil, we get a little nervous because we are not just representing ourselves, we are representing the lives of people whom we want to impact because of this deal. And we often pray about it before we go in. And that storytelling, because at the heart of everything, we are not servers and desktops. We have emotions, we have families, and when we tell the stories, they can relate to it because someone will have a child, someone will have probably had a bad day with the wife had a bad day with the husband, even things like parents pulling their hair out because of home-based learning, things like that. And we can relate to all this because change always comes at a very uncomfortable pace. But if we understand the why, then change is less painful.
For me, yes, it is our youth proposition as a impact investor for Garden Impact, because we do not just want to market the stories without delivering of financial results. We want to demonstrate that unfortunately today there's a strong negative stigma about social enterprise. Either they are more social than enterprise, or they are more of a charity than a social problem. So I'd like to call my investee portfolio companies like Agape as social impact companies. They are not an enterprise, because as an enterprise, usually they are very poorly capitalized. But for company, they are have kept proper capital structure in the business, and they are focusing on both financial returns and social impact returns. So that is our goal. As Garden Impact, we want to help these social entrepreneurs with a mission-oriented mind and heart, that we want to help them to scale up to become a proper social impact company. So for us, unless there's a compelling story, if it's just another financial investment, it is not within our scope. Back to you.
I love that, and I think that it's actually a really good place to wrap up. The reason why we did this session as the final session was to really go back to the heart of why we do what we do, the purpose behind it, and it's people. And so I love that the story of Agape and of Anil and Mason and everyone who's dialing in is all about the people. And that's why we want to give help where help's needed, provide equal opportunities through an enterprise model. And I think that it's just like a really, really good closing to, yes, we want to make a good return. We want to do all of these things, but at the heart of it, it's actually people. And this is why we all do what we do. So it's been such a pleasure having this conference, having amazing speakers. I know, Joseph, you must be so busy with everything that's going on, and the fact that you've taken time to share with us. And Neil, I know you couldn't make the whole rehearsals and all that, but thank you for dialing in today and sharing from your heart as well. Lucy, thank you. I know you've been covering stories a lot. There's so much going on in broadcasting, and to Mason as well, and to every single speaker and panelist that we've had throughout this week. It's just been such an amazing week, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. So thank you. Let's stay connected, but also collaborate and actually see actions coming out of this. So please get in touch. Again, all the email addresses have been posted up, and just want to wish you a really good weekend, a Friday night, and please come for Social Enterprise Saturday and just a chat with TBN as well. So thank you, and stay safe, and yeah, we'll hope to see you very soon again. Take care.